Hello, guys. People say there are things that one can watch eternally. And for me, this is how Russia's oil refineries burn, how their warships sink, and how constantly dropping oil prices destroy Russia's war budget. It is still a couple of days before the newest White House sanctions are fully implemented, and Russia's oil prices have already hit their lowest in 3 years. They are prepared to sell a barrel of Urals for just $33, and this is deadly for their budget already empty, and the central bank confirms that the GDP growth is almost equal zero, just 0.6. It's way worse than they predicted at the beginning of this year, and in total, the revenues for oil and gas fell more than 20% in 2025, and that before the implementation of these newest sanctions. What's interesting, India and China, being afraid of economic consequences for their budget, decided to abandon Russia again, days before the sanctions are implemented. Just imagine what can happen if Trump will continue, because today he actually promised more bad sanctions for the Kremlin that can actually reach not only the oil industry but any kinds of business with Russia. Let's discuss what's happening with the Russian oil prices and thus their budget from this newest perspective. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the defeat and demilitarization of Russia that has already started, subscribe and share these videos to spread the good news and to spread the truth, which is very important in the modern world still intoxicated by Russian lies. But even with this attitude, they cannot hide tremendous problems with their budget. Their economic growth is absent. They planned approximately 2-5% GDP growth, but report 0.6. Literally zero. It's something that Russia did not experience for a very long period of time. They did have problems, but finally, this accumulative effect of Ukrainian drone sanctions, economic sanctions, demonstrated they are working. Plus the fear, because we can clearly see by the behavior of India and China and Turkey, countries that continued buying Russian oil despite the previous sanctions and now decided to halt such purchases, that the White House still has great influence on Russia's economic instability. And after a new comment coming off the White House, where Trump promises more deadly sanctions for the Russian economy against various businesses, naming Iran, maybe even Hungary as a country that keeps cooperating with the war criminal regime, it seems pretty promising. But what's interesting, right now, perhaps the greatest problem of the Russian war economy is these problems with their oil industry. Usually we focus on the destruction of oil refineries. We have a lot of that discussed on the channel, but today we will focus on this constantly falling oil prices. And that is one of the reasons why the USSR collapsed, that was fully dependent on the oil prices after an extremely exhausting war in Afghanistan, and the situation repeats itself. Right now, Russia is very exhausted after war in Ukraine, which did not bring them literally anything, and the oil prices keep falling. New sanctions influenced Rosneft and Lukoil. They hope they could find a loophole, if that's the right term. They could substitute these companies with something else dependent on the Kremlin, but the plan failed because nobody is going to play with Putin. And at this moment, the oil prices are super low, especially for Russia. For example, one of their best known types, Urals, is sold for $36 per barrel. And the discounts are crazy because countries stopped buying Russian oil. They don't want any negative economic consequences, and you know that in the world of predators, and that's how we can describe this axis of evil that right now is fighting against the democratic West. This is India, this is China, this is Iran. They don't want to suffer for the sake of their predator partner. It's not about friendship, it's about, benefits. So as long as it was beneficial beneficiary for them to buy cheap Russian crude oil. They did it. But now, when they fear that the consequences may be worse, they started stopping the purchases. And it's interesting because many companies, many refineries inside China and India actually promised the Kremlin they would keep buying, but they literally, and I like this phrase, begged from purchasing. That's from Bloomberg, not from my, Ukrainian excitement. And all of this happens days before the sanctions are fully implemented. Just imagine what will happen after they will be implemented. So Russia is losing a lot. The prices they put into the forecast of their budget, into the forecast of their revenue, were totally different. And if the situation remains like that, or more sanctions to come, Russia will keep making more and more discounts for fewer and fewer countries that are prepared to buy this bloody oil. And right now, perhaps a lot of Russia's crude oil is somewhere in the oceans, unable to reach any of the shores, because literally nobody wants that. And by the way, people, this is also good for our ecology, because the way Russia pumps is not to follow and repeat in any other country. And also because Russia uses the energy resources, gas, oil, as instruments of blackmail, as instruments of influence. And it's way better to pay maybe a couple of dollars more, but to remain safe and independent from Russian way of having business. So we clearly see that refineries in China, in India, in Turkey don't want Russian oil. That means they will drop prices even more and literally have no income. By the way, Russia's companies like Lukoil, like Rosneft, are very afraid to halt the pumping, because the moment it happens, and we are on the brink of this situation, they literally do not have where to store crude oil, depots, refineries explode, other foreign refineries don't want Russia's crude oil, so they will need to shut down these pumping wells, and that's the end for the industry. To restore it from such frozen state, it may take decades, and with empty budgets, it's literally impossible in the coming years after the collapse of the Kremlin regime. The central bank officially reports that in the third quarter, they literally did not have any growth. Russia's GDP growth is 0.6. At first they hoped it would be 2%, 2.5, then 1%, but literally, I guess, very few countries in the world can boast such negative growth of their GDP, which is also a demonstration of serious internal problems and risks that they face. And problems with oil industry, problems with gasoline lead to fewer and fewer taxes paid from big companies into Russia's war budget, empty Russia's war budget, which means they will continue enlarging taxes for the Russian population. Here we come to this, quite an ironic moment that millions of Russians describe themselves as apolitical and now cannot really understand what's happening, how come they were so, polite, they were so obedient, and the results are still very negative for them. The VAT in Russia grows to 22% from 20%, but what is worse, the threshold for small businesses that were previously exempt from paying VAT is lower, so they had to pay it if the income was like 50 million rubles. That's almost nothing. And now it's just 10. So you can find tons of videos on Russian social media where owners of middle businesses, small businesses literally say goodbye, understanding they won't be able to cover such taxes. Which means not only they destroy the middle business in Russia, these private entrepreneurs, but they also won't get anything into the already empty Russia's budget. And this is a situation of which there is no way out unless to end this war, but Putin cannot because he's afraid of millions of his soldiers, bloodthirsty war criminals. He needs this war to explain his failures and pretend that Russia needs him as a strong hand, when in reality we may say that he is one of the triggers of this tremendous collapse of Russia's economy and thus the project of the USSR to zero. And the revenues are dropping. Approximately 70% of all potential revenues are influenced either by Ukrainian drone sanctions or the sanctions of the White House, of the European Union. And if Putin was not mad, he would have definitely stopped this war. But he won't, so our task is to continue sanctioning. Let me know, do you think any new sanctions can come soon? Because that's what the White House recently announced. But I guarantee you that the Ukrainian drones will keep doing the job, defending innocent people from the evil. Please remember to subscribe to Anna Danichuk channel with a new, very interesting, underestimated video about the danger of the civil war in Russia. And no, that's not my opinion. That's the opinion of one of Putin's friends. Follow me on X, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, Discord. All the links in the description of this video, same as the link to our merch shop, where more and more new products dedicated to the holiday season keep appearing. So check and join the community of the ambassadors of Ukraine in these sweatshirts, caps and t-shirts, reminding the world about our fight and the need to defeat the Kremlin. Together we can do it. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel, but most importantly, thank you for standing with Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!